this ninth one is diagramming wisely, and what that means is we want to make sure that all the different tools we have in our BI toolbox, we want to make sure we're using the right one for the job. We're using the right graph type for the information, and we're using grids when it's appropriate to use grids. So, ask yourself if the visualizations are used appropriately. Could another approach better present the information? And do you have a clear and compelling rationale for each visualization choice you use? Now we're going to look at this dashboard again with Widgets Incorporated. We incorporated that background image. We have our category and region selectors here at the top that drive everything. But I think this pie chart is a curious choice, especially when we look at the movies or even music category level. We're seeing 6 very similar values, and even if it wasn't for the values in the pie, I think it's still hard to determine what's your top performing one, especially with the color combination you're using. It's important that you don't use colors that clash together. To avoid that, don't use very vibrant colors, especially on pie charts when they're going to be next to each other. You can see that this red, even though it's only 1 percentage point higher than the blue color, it kind of overwhelms it. It kind of takes over, it absorbs it. And I think, it's tough to tell. Even with this 18% in orange and being the same as 18% in the blue and green, it actually looks bigger just because it's the first thing you see, or maybe the second thing you see. So, 2 things wrong with this pie chart for 6 very similar values, or pie chart to show 6 values in general is not a good way to go. You generally want to do 3 or fewer with a pie chart. And if you're going to use a pie chart, make sure you use a more subtle color palette and colors that don't jar with each other, that don't clash with each other. So, knowing that, it's a very simple fix. We worked with the end user, the category manager, and we wanted to make sure that we're showing this information in such a way where it makes sense to them. And they didn't really care about the specific values of each slice of each category. All they really cared about was just that they could rather quickly see what is the best performing subcategory in the category dimension. So knowing that, all we did is we changed the graph type to a horizontal bar chart, and we listed the subcategories here. We're not showing any values. If you need values, you can hover over it. But again, it's a quick visual representation where you can see what is the best performing and the worst performing subcategory. So we'll go to the music one so we can compare apples to apples here. Even it's a little easier to tell that country music is your top performer here. Maybe to make it more obvious, if you're going to nitpick, you could maybe arrange these bar charts by highest percentage to lowest percentage so that it goes down. That's probably even a better way to do it quickly at a glance. But no doubt, an improvement and a rather quick improvement just by doing a couple of key steps. So, to summarize, use the right tool for the job. There's a million different graph types that you can have, and we have grids as well. You want to make sure that you're using the right one for the information that you're showing. And, it's a common question we get, what do I use for what? Truth be told, you probably can use a combination or several different graph types for a set of information. It's about personal preference, it's about what's appropriate for the dashboard. It's about maybe balancing what you're already using to be consistent. If you're using a lot of bar charts and they make sense, don't be afraid to keep using them. But the important thing is we don't want to add a variety, a whole spectrum of graph types on the dashboard just because we can do that. It's distracting, it's not tasteful, it's just not good design. So have a reason.
We have some suggestions in the survival guide for what to use.
Correct.
Plan, right? Okay.
Correct.
Yep.
And that survival guide we talked about can be downloaded at lancetsoftware.com/dashboards. We talk about diagramming wisely, and we have specific examples of when to use a bar chart, when to use a line but in many ways you can use multiple areas. So you need to kind of balance with it, play with it, see what makes sense, and a lot of it comes with experience, no doubt. But a lot of it too is still. Again, use a subtle color palette. We don't want to use highly saturated colors, especially when they're together and clashing against another. You might ask, Mike, you talked about using brand imagery for the company you're working for. What if they have bold colors and vibrant colors? I guess the best way I would do that is maybe you can use their bold colors as a highlight point. Maybe you want to use that for a very specific metric, a very important metric. But otherwise, chances are, especially with large companies, they have bold colors, but they also have a alternative, more subtle, I wouldn't say grayscale, but a lot more lighter color scheme that they can use as well. So if you're having trouble working with highly saturated colors for a customer, see if you can work with their marketing team, in a best case world. But otherwise, you can still always